What if I told you there is a cheese that smells like a walk through a wild Mediterranean hillside in late summer? A cheese so deeply tied to its landscape that the island's own identity, its very soul, is literally pressed into its rind. Today, we go deep into one of Europe's most mysterious and most misunderstood cheeses. This is Brin du Maquis from Fromagerie A Filetta in Haute-Corse, Corsica. And I promise you, once you understand where this cheese comes from and what happens to it during aging, you will never look at herb-coated cheese the same way again. To understand this cheese, you first have to understand Corsica. Corsica, the birthplace of Napoleon Bonaparte. When he was in exile far from home, he once said he could recognize the smell of Corsica with his eyes closed. Not the beaches, not the mountains, the maquis. The maquis, M-A-Q-U-I-S, is a dense, wild scrubland that covers more than half of the island. Wild rosemary, thyme, savory, juniper berries, immortelle, and tiny wild bird's eye chilies scattered throughout the brush. This isn't a garden. This is the island itself growing food. The sheep of Corsica, the native Brebis course, don't live in barns. They roam freely across these hills, eating this wild vegetation every single day. That aromatic diet goes directly into their milk, and that milk goes directly into the cheese. So when you taste Brin du Maquis, you're not just tasting cheese, you're tasting a map of the island itself. So what exactly is Brin du Maquis? It's a soft, raw, sheep's milk cheese, no pressing, no cooking of the curd. That means the interior stays open, tender, and moist. The milk is collected from small farms across the region, and the curd is handled entirely by hand, carefully ladled into molds without machines. But what makes this cheese truly unique is the coating. After the wheels are formed, they are completely covered by hand in dried herbs from the maquis, rosemary, savory, juniper berries, and tiny bird's eye chilies. These aren't just for appearance, they become part of the cheese. During aging, the essential oils from these herbs slowly move into the outer layers of the cheese. When it's young, just a few days old, the interior is firm, fresh, almost chalky. But give it time, 2 to 5 weeks, and everything changes. The paste becomes soft, creamy, almost liquid right beneath the rind. The herbs are no longer sitting on the surface, they're inside the cheese. You smell the maquis before you even take a bite. Behind this cheese is a family story. In 1972, a farmer named Michel Mattei started with just 80 sheep in Haute-Corse. At first, he sold milk to a mainland producer. But soon, he and his wife Laurence made a decision. They would start making cheese themselves. Then, in 1976, during Christmas, they did something simple. They pressed a small fern leaf into the surface of their cheeses as decoration, but customers loved it. They started calling the cheeses a filetta, meaning the fern in Corsican. And just like that, a brand was born. Today, over 50 years later, Fromagerie A Filetta still produces this cheese, still by hand, still rooted in tradition. Every wheel carries that same identity. And now, we arrive at the moment that matters most, a fully aged Brin du Maquis. About 4 weeks old, the rind is covered in grey-blue natural mould, a sign of perfect ripeness, not a flaw. The herbs are fully embedded, and when you gently press the surface, it gives. The interior is soft, almost liquid, exactly where it should be. When you cut into it, the paste reveals itself, ivory, smooth, slightly oozing at the edges, no cracks, no holes, just a perfectly even texture, showing careful craftsmanship and balanced aging. Then comes the experience. First, the aroma. Rosemary hits immediately. Then something deeper, resinous, almost pine-like. Juniper, warm herbs layered together. It smells like the landscape itself. The texture is incredibly soft, barely holding its shape. The first taste is fresh and slightly tangy, clean, bright. And then the herbs begin to unfold. Rosemary first, then savory, earthy, rustic, and finally a gentle warmth from the chilies. Not spicy, just warm, like sunlight on a hillside at the end of the day. And this is what makes a cheese like this truly special. It wasn't engineered in a lab. It wasn't designed by a corporation. It started with a family, a few sheep, and an idea. And today it carries the identity of an entire island. If you want to take it even further, pair it with a wine. A Corsican white, like a Vermentino, works beautifully. The citrus and floral notes lift the herbs and balance the richness of the cheese. Even a Greek retsina, with its resin character, can mirror the flavors in a surprising way. So, what's the final verdict? Brin du Maquis may not be the most complex cheese in the world, but it might be one of the most evocative. One bite, and you're transported. Standing on a Corsican hillside, the scent of wild herbs in the air, the sea in the distance, the sun warm on your skin. That's what great food does. It takes you somewhere. And this one takes you somewhere unforgettable. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to CheeseHeavenTV. Every week we explore incredible cheeses from small artisan producers across Europe, the kinds of places most people never see. And now, I want to ask you something. What's the most extraordinary food place you've ever heard of? A cave? A mountain? A hidden workshop somewhere in the world? Tell me in the comments, because your answer might become the next story we tell. Until next time, keep exploring, keep tasting, and never settle for ordinary.